2020 Pascal Contest for Grade 9, Part 8. How to save time by finding shortcuts in solutions. Hi, Lenny Woo's here. Some may ask the questions, what are shortcuts? Well, shortcuts are unconventional but creative ways of solving the problems. Usually, they lead to faster solutions and easier concepts. I myself was inspired by my grandfather's motto below. Shortcuts are everywhere, but only obvious to a curious mind. And that defines me to be always searching for unobvious but easier solutions to save our precious time. Now let's see how we can find a way to save our time in Pascal contests through shortcuts. We know about PEMDAS, or the order of operations. PEMDAS is an acronym for the words parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. First, when we have multiplication and division only, which one do we do first, or it doesn't matter? Well, when possible, always do division first. Why? After all, we want to get the numbers as low as possible. Second, when we have addition and subtraction only, which one do we do first, or it doesn't matter? Well, you get it. Subtract before add for the same reasons above. Third, when we first read the question, do we search for clues to solutions or rush to the answers right away? Well, rushing will not save your time. It may sound like a paradox, but it is true. So always read the questions carefully and find the relationship between the unknown and the known, and then find the efficient way to tackle the question. So the answer is probe. Fourth, when calculations involve multiple steps, do we list each step or jump to the final step right away? In other words, do we get as specific as possible or as generic as possible? Well, getting into details is good, but it takes time. During the contest, time is precious, so be generic rather than specific. Last, to get to the right answer, do we calculate them or memorize the results? Well, if we can memorize results save us precious time than having to recalculate. So the answer is memorize. Did you get 4 out of 5 right? If so, feel free to stop here and move on to the next video. Otherwise, let's go ahead and see when and how to apply these 5 rules of thumb. Now, the first question comes from the year 2010. Question number 2. The value of 20 minus 16 times 12 plus 8 divided by 4 equals. Well, the conventional way is to find the result 20 minus 16 equals 4 times 12 plus 8 equals 20. So 4 times 20 equals 80. 80 divided by 4 equals 20. So the answer is C, 20. However, is there any shortcut in doing this math? As we said, division over multiplication. So before we multiply 4 and 20, let's see if we can divide first. We have 4 in the numerator and 4 in the denominator. We can cross them out. So the answer is what is left is 20. So rather than calculate the multiplication to have 80, we have 20 right away by dividing 4 into 4 times 20. Second question. This one involves subtraction over addition. Let's see how it works. The question comes from the year 2009. Question 16. In the diagram, a 4 by 9 grid P, Q, T, V is formed from 36 1 by 1 squares. Line PR, that is diagonal here, and US, the other diagonal, are drawn with R and S on QT. So the question is, what is the ratio of the shaded area to the unshaded area? So one way is to count. However, we have some partial squares, and it's very hard to add up to the real area of these unshaded or shaded squares. So another way is to count 3 by 4 equals 12. So half of it is 6. 12 divided by 2. In the middle one, we can count 8 shaded areas. And we have 4 times 3 divided by 2. Basically, we calculate the area of this triangle. It will give us another 6. So let's add up these 6 plus 8 plus 6 equals 20 shaded squares. So altogether, we know we have 36 squares minus 20 shaded equals 16 unshaded. So the shaded to the unshaded will be 20 versus 16, which will be 5 versus 4. So the answer is E. So my question is, are there any shortcuts in doing this? Well, absolutely. Let's see. From this chart, we know there are 36 squares. And for this part, we know half of them are shaded. The other half are unshaded. For this part, we know the same, half shaded, half unshaded. The crucial point comes from these two areas. These 8 shaded versus this 4 unshaded. So we know altogether the numbers of shaded area is 4 more than the number of unshaded areas. With that, we know the total 36 that's divided there will have 32. So half of it will be 16, that's unshaded. The rest will be 16 plus the 4 squares that shaded exceed unshaded area. So shaded has 20 squares. So to answer the question, we know 20 versus 16 unshaded squares. The answer is still 5 versus 4. So hope this can cut down the time of solving the issues. Now let's look at the third question. Third question is coming from the year 2009. Question 10. If z equals 4, x plus y equals 7, x plus z equals 8, what is the value of x plus y plus z? The usual way of doing this is try to solve the value for x, y, and z. So we know z is 4. We put z into here, and we know z is 4, so x is 4 too. So if x is 4, y will be 3. So the answer x plus y plus z equals 4 plus 4 plus 3 equals 11. So the answer is C. So you may ask, is there any shortcut for doing this? Absolutely. That applies to the third rule of thumb. Let's probe rather than rush to get the answers. Okay, now let's look at this question, we have 3 variables and 3 equations. We can get the answer for each variable from the equations, and then we can add them up. That's the conventional way. The unconventional way is try to see what the question is about. If the question asks x plus y plus z is how much, we can easily add up these two. 4 plus 7 equals 11. So rather than jump into the question right away and get the answer for each variable x, y, z, we can simply add up the first 2 equations to get the answer. This is because we read the answer and try to find any relationship between the question and the knowns. Now, shortcut number 4, generic versus specific. Let's look at this question. This comes from the year 2009. Question 18. Every 4 years, the population of the town of Arlo doubles. On December 31st, 2008, the population of Arlo was 3456. What was the population on December 31st, 1988? So the question asked about the population 20 years ago. From the question, we know that every 4 years, the population of the town doubles. So the conventional way will be, we start from 3456 in the year 2008. To get the population 4 years ago in 2004, it is half of the year 2008. So we divide it by 2, we have 1728. And then in the year 2000, which is also 4 years ago, it will be half of the population in 2004, giving us 864. And then in 1996, we have 432. 1992, we have 216. Last, in 1988, we have 108. So the answer for this is the population in the year 1988 is D, 108. So you may ask, is there any shortcut in doing this question? Well, yes. Rather than get into each step of the population, we can save time to get from the year 2008 all the way to the year 1988. Why? Because we don't want to get into the details. It takes time. Suppose the question asked not for 20 years, but for 200 years. It will be no way for us to go line by line back 200 years, right? So let's see if we can get from 2008 straight to the year 1988. We know there are 20 years apart. For every 4 years, the population doubles. So altogether, it comes from the first year to the 20th year. The population will double 5 times, right? For each 4 years, it doubles. And then for 20 years, 20 divided by 4 equals 5. So altogether, it increases population by 2 to the power of 5, which is 32. Now, let's divide it by 56 divided by 32. That's 1. We have 25, 0, 6. That's 8. So the answer is 108. Still D. By doing this, we bypass each individual step, which also may lead to errors. We calculate the rate of increase during the past 20 years, it increases 5 times. So we divided the total population by 2 to the power of 5 in order to get the answer 108. Now, last question. Last question is a very good example of showing how we can memorize some very popular numbers rather than recalculate during the exam. For example, this question comes from the year 2019. Question 18. In the diagram, each of the triangle Q, P, T, and Q, T, S, and Q, S, R is an isosceles right-angled triangle with the angle QPT, QTS, and QSR equals to 90 degrees. The combined area of the three triangles is 56. So if QP and PT equals K, what is the value of K? This comes from part B question. So it is kind of medium level question. So we know that for isosceles right angle triangle, the two sides are equal and it has a 90-degree right angle. We know for one side, for example, the side is 1, the hypotenuse will be 1 square plus 1 square equals this side. Let's say this side is A equals A square. So A equals the root of 1 square plus 1 square equals root 2. Now, rather than doing this calculation during the exam, we need to memorize that for a right angle triangle with a base of 1, the hypotenuse will be root of 2. Now we know K, and this hypotenuse will be root 2 times K. And if that's root 2K, this one is also root 2 times K. And then before you know, this side will be root 2 times root 2K equals 2K. And this will be the same, 2K, and this will be 2 root 2K. Now we can quickly calculate the side of each triangle, and then we can calculate the area of each triangle before we get to the answer of K. Now the area of the first triangle equals K times K divided by 2 plus square 2K times square 2K divided by 2 plus 2K times 2K divided by 2 equals K square plus 2K square plus 4K square. So altogether we got 7 over 2 K squared. Now we know that the total area of the three squares are 56. So that's equals to 56. Now we know K squared equals 2 over 7. Let's move this 7 over 2 to the right. And then times 56 equals 16. Now we know K squared equals 16. K equals 4. The answer is C, 4. And now that's conclude this session of 2020 Pascal contest. Best of luck.